Humanity had done the hard part. A spacecraft called Mariner 9 had crossed the darkness between worlds and arrived at Mars. For years, reaching the planet itself had been the challenge. Engines had to fire at exactly the right moment. Communications had to survive millions of miles of empty space. Everything had to work. And in the autumn of 1971, it did. Mars filled the view ahead. The destination was no longer a distant point of light. It was a world. A red world waiting to be seen. The expectation seemed obvious. After such a journey, the reward would be the planet itself. Valleys, craters, mountains, the details hidden from Earth by distance. All Mariner 9 had to do was look. Instead, it found almost nothing. The first images arriving from Mars showed a planet that seemed strangely empty. Not empty of land, empty of detail. A smooth reddish disk occupied the frame. No dramatic canyons, no recognizable landmarks, no surface features sharp enough to anchor the eye. The spacecraft had reached Mars. Yet Mars appeared to have vanished. At first, the explanation seemed simple. A dust storm. Mars experiences storms regularly. Fine particles can rise into the atmosphere and drift across enormous distances. Scientists knew this. Dust was part of the planet's character. The assumption was reassuring. The spacecraft was healthy. Mars was still there. Dust storms eventually ended. The mission could wait. But orbit after orbit brought little change. Mariner 9 circled the planet, passing over a world it had traveled hundreds of millions of miles to study. Each pass should have revealed new terrain. Instead, the same featureless globe returned again and again. The destination remained physically present. Access did not. The difficult journey across space was over. Now the weather controlled everything. The red sphere became a recurring reminder of opportunity slipping away. Every orbit represented observation time. Every orbit passed, whether the planet could be seen or not. The spacecraft continued moving. The mission's purpose remained stalled. From a distance, the situation looked temporary. From orbit, it felt different. Days became weeks. The storm was not a cloud drifting across a region. It had expanded until it wrapped around nearly the entire planet. Mars had hidden itself behind its own atmosphere. The strange part was that nothing appeared broken. The cameras functioned. The spacecraft responded. The orbit remained stable. The mission was succeeding in every way except the one that mattered most. The world below remained concealed. Waiting became part of the mission. Not dramatic waiting. Not dangerous waiting. The quieter kind. The kind that becomes heavier because nothing seems to change. The same red disk. The same veil of dust. The same unanswered question. How much of Mars was actually hidden beneath it? Then something appeared. Not across the planet. Not all at once. Just a small interruption in the pattern. A feature rising above the haze. The dust still dominated the atmosphere, but certain peaks seemed tall enough to break through it. Tiny islands emerging from an ocean of airborne sand. The observation did not fit the comfortable explanation. If the storm was merely blocking the mission, why were discoveries beginning before visibility returned? Mariner 9 kept watching. More elevated features appeared. Some were astonishingly large. They were not simply mountains. They were volcanoes of a scale never before seen. One of them would become known as Olympus Mons, the largest volcano identified in the solar system. Yet the significance was not only the size of the mountain. It was the timing of the discovery. Mars was still hidden. The storm still controlled the view. And somehow the storm itself was helping reveal a new version of the planet. The audience expectation that had guided the mission began to weaken. The belief had been simple. First the dust would leave. Then the discoveries would begin. Reality was unfolding differently. Discovery had already started. The obstacle and the observation were becoming inseparable. The red sphere no longer represented only loss. It had become a source of signals. Clues emerged through the very condition that seemed to prevent exploration. The planet was teaching something before it became visible. Gradually, the atmosphere began to clear. Not in a single dramatic moment. The transformation unfolded over time. Details returned piece by piece. Dark regions emerged. Surface patterns sharpened. The blank world that had dominated the mission slowly gave way to a landscape. And what a landscape it was. Vast volcanoes. Immense canyons. Features stretching across distances difficult to imagine. Mariner 9 continued orbiting, building a picture of an entire planet. By the end of its mission, it had mapped most of Mars. The world that had once appeared empty became one of the most detailed planetary portraits humanity had ever assembled. But the meaning of the mission had changed. The completed maps were important. The discoveries were important. Yet neither fully explained why this story remained memorable. The reason lay in that earlier image, the featureless red sphere. The world that seemed absent despite being directly below the spacecraft. That image transformed the meaning of everything that followed. At the beginning, Mars appeared to be the objective. Reach the planet. See the planet. Mission accomplished. The storm destroyed that assumption. Arrival created opportunity, but it did not create understanding. Understanding had to be earned. Sometimes through waiting. Sometimes through uncertainty. Sometimes through the collapse of expectations. By the time Mars finally returned, it was no longer simply a destination. It was a world that had revealed itself on its own terms. The dust storm that appeared to delay the mission became one of the most important scientific events of the mission itself. The obstacle had become part of the discovery. And so the story of Mariner 9 is not really about reaching Mars. It is about arriving somewhere extraordinary and realizing the destination is still unavailable. A spacecraft crossed space, entered orbit, and looked down at a planet it could not see. Then, slowly, the hidden world emerged. Not despite the storm, because the mission stayed long enough to learn what the storm meant. In the end, the final maps of Mars answered the question that had haunted every silent orbit around that blank red globe. Reaching a destination and understanding it are not the same thing.